So what happens when a student of forensic science, someone who literally studies how to solve crimes for a living, tries to commit one themselves? We're about to unravel a case where academic theory just slammed into criminal reality, all part of a meticulous plan by a student who truly believed she could get away with the perfect murder. On the surface, this looked like a pretty straightforward tragedy. But as investigators started to peel back the layers, a much, much more sinister story began to emerge. The central question became crystal clear. Was this a horrible accident, or was it a cold, calculated murder designed to look exactly like one? All right, let's start at the beginning. Our story kicks off with a fire in a Timarpur apartment in Delhi, and what the first responders found, well, it seemed to point to a really simple, though tragic explanation. Just try to imagine the scene, right? The smell of smoke is thick in the air, there's a badly burned body, and you can hear the hiss of a leaking gas cylinder. For those first responders, all the signs were pointing to an accidental fire. A devastating event, sure, but uncomplicated. The story pretty much seemed to write itself. But here's the thing. This fire was no accident. And to really get what happened, we need to rewind. We need to look at the dark drama that set this whole thing in motion. It's a story of blackmail and, ultimately, a plot for revenge. Okay, so at the heart of all this, we've got four key people. First, the victim, 32-year-old Kesh Meena. And then, the accused, Amrita Chauhan, her ex-boyfriend Sumit Kashyap, and an accomplice, Sandeep Kumar. But the detail that makes this case just mind-blowing is Amrita herself. She was a 21-year-old forensic science student. Yeah, the very person studying how to solve crimes was now the main suspect in one. So you gotta be asking, why? Why would she do it? Well, the motive was powerful, and it was deeply personal: revenge. It turns out, according to the investigation, Kesh Meena had recorded some private videos of Amrita and was using them to blackmail her. He just refused to delete them. And Amrita, feeling like she was pushed into a corner, decided she was going to take matters into her own hands. Now, let's be clear. This wasn't some crime of passion. Oh, no. This was a carefully, meticulously constructed plan. And Amrita was using her own forensic knowledge not just to commit a murder, but to try and completely erase it from ever happening. So here's exactly how that night went down. Around midnight, Sumit and Sandeep sneak into Meena's apartment. First, they strangle and bludgeon him to death. But killing him, that wasn't the final step, not even close. Next up was the staging. They doused his body in ghee, oil, and wine, pretty common household items they hoped would act as accelerants. Then they set it on fire and opened the gas valve. The whole point was to create this perfect illusion of a tragic, accidental explosion. The plan was definitely elaborate, I'll give her that. But this is exactly where the theory she learned in a classroom slammed right into the hard reality of a crime scene. The physical evidence, well, it started telling a completely different story from the one she had so carefully tried to write. And this is where the real forensic science just completely deconstructed the whole lie. The idea was to fake a violent gas explosion. But for fire experts, the reality was crystal clear. The burn patterns showed a slow, deliberate burn, not some sudden blast. And on top of that, a chemical analysis of the scene found traces of the ghee, oil, and alcohol, the very accelerants they had used. That fire, it was nothing more than a cover-up. The illusion was that he died in the fire. But the truth? That was laid bare in the autopsy. The pathologist found obvious ligature marks on his neck, plus evidence of blunt force trauma. Meena was dead long before that first flame was ever even lit. And the evidence just kept piling up. CCTV footage, yup, it caught two masked men who turned out to be Sumit and Sandeep entering and leaving the building at the exact time of the murder. And here's one final, absolutely damning piece from the autopsy. If you die in a fire, you inhale smoke, right? Your airways get filled with soot. But Meena, he only had a tiny amount of soot in his airway, which was proof positive he wasn't breathing when that fire started. So the physical evidence proved what happened. But it was the digital trail that really blew the case wide open. It revealed who planned it all, connecting the crime directly back to the forensic student herself. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. This was the search that sealed their fate. On Amrita's phone, investigators found a search query that was just jaw-dropping. She'd searched for how to fake cylinder blast. It wasn't just evidence. It was basically a confession of premeditation, a digital blueprint of her entire plan. So, this all brings us back to the big question, right? How could a student, someone armed with the very knowledge designed to solve crimes, fail so completely in her attempt to commit one? Well, the profile that emerged suggests a really dangerous level of overconfidence. It seems Amrita truly believed that her textbooks and all those crime shows she watched were a complete playbook for the real world. She had all the theory, but absolutely no grasp of how messy and unpredictable reality can be. And this, right here, just brilliantly illustrates that fatal gap between knowledge and practice. Real crime scenes are chaotic. Textbooks can't possibly predict every single variable. And a real investigation isn't just one person, it's a whole team of specialists. You've got fire experts, digital analysts, pathologists, all working together. See, she studied the science, but she completely, totally underestimated the scientists. And here's the ultimate irony in all of this. Amrita Chauhan's failed perfect murder has actually achieved a kind of academic immortality. Her crime is now a case study, used in forensic programs all over the world to teach new students the very lessons she so spectacularly failed to learn. The huge difference between theory and the messy, unpredictable truth of a real investigation. So it really leaves us with a fascinating question, doesn't it? Does knowing the science of crime solving actually make you a better criminal? Or does it just give your own arrogance a more elaborate stage on which to fail?